Good afternoon. If we can all go back to our seats, please. Any activities happening on the side are completely illegal. And Attorney Abad will make sure that we will file criminal cases against any type of activities going on the side. When we were deciding where to hold this historic event, we felt that SMX Aura was a good place to be because, number one, it was something new for many of you. Number two, it gave those of you an incentive to come because you could shop afterwards. And so given that incentive, I promised the organizers that we would try to end this early. So we will end this at around 3 or 3:15 so you can avoid the traffic. You can enjoy Aura, but for those of you who wish, we will continue to admit that we ended at 9 p.m. tonight. Just in case you have other intentions. So allow me to get to the next portion of the program, which is in many ways the meat of today's session. It's been a long voyage to get here. In 2006, when the Philippine Business for Education was formed, as mentioned earlier this morning by our chairman, Ramon Del Rosario, it was really a group of business people who got together to advocate for education reform. But in the advocacy process, as we went through discussions on K-12, teacher quality, financing higher education, we made two observations since then. Number one, what we noticed is every time we talked about an issue in higher education or that affected higher education, we had to talk to different groups. We had to talk to the private associations, we had to talk to the state universities and colleges, and we had to talk to the local universities and colleges. We could never talk to just one group. Yet, when we talked to each group separately, the concerns were many times the same, the trials were also the same, and the vision was in many times the same. So we could not figure out why we always had to talk to three different groups which didn't seem to talk together as we tried to reform our education system. The second observation we made was that oftentimes education reform in this country was not driven by vision, but driven by reaction. Oftentimes, the education groups would always be reacting to some new CHED or DepEd policy, to some new CMO or DepEd administrative order. Rather than driving the agenda, the higher education sector was driven by other people. Thus, we were fortunate that in the early years of PBED, in the beginnings of this higher education productivity project with USAID, we were fortunate that when we brought industry and academia together, that the different associations participated very eagerly. Their leadership and their boards participated in these dialogues, and that this paved the way for today's event. We're fortunate that the leadership and the board members of all of the associations of higher education are very open to change, reform, and to working together. Which brings us to here today. It's been a long journey, and I constantly get asked, why are we doing this? Well, number one, as mentioned by Richard, we're here to collaborate. I mentioned in one newspaper article that the problems of Philippine education are so huge, they're so large, that nothing less than a united effort can get this education ship to turn around. So that's one. We hope to come together and start collaborating on reform. But second, we want to drive a vision for a better, more accessible, higher quality Philippine education system. We want to drive the vision rather than react to the vision of others. And so that's what this session is about. We have two objectives: to bring all of us together, all of you together, in order to start working as one whole, and second, to present a vision or an agenda for Philippine higher education. Philippine Business for Education seeks only to be a handmaiden or a midwife in this process. And to a large degree, this really has been driven by the players beside you. Discussions were actually started in October more formally. And during these discussions, 6 agenda items were identified as concrete concerns for all higher education institutions, whether local, private, or state. Working groups headed by a chair and a co-chair were formed to enumerate action points for each agenda. Please note, all of these working groups were headed by presidents of institutions. PBED only acted as secretariat and backroom to organize the meetings. Individuals, institutions were consulted. PBED did research when requested. All in all, close to 20 different meetings and consultations were held until the drafts were circulated among the school associations for comment. The drafts have been revised and revised and revised several times between April and July until the versions until the version that is now on your table was achieved. So without much further, let me first call the people who are behind all of these efforts to the stage to join us as we launch the agenda for higher education. First, the President of ALCU and the President of University of Makati, Professor Tomas Lopez. Next, the President of the Philippine Association of Colleges and Universities and the President of Misamis University, Dr. Karen De Leon. Parang famas yung music, di ba? Next, the President of the Philippine Association of State Universities and Colleges and the President of the Mindanao University for Science and Technology, Dr. Rick Rotoras. Next is the President of the Philippine Association of Private Schools, Colleges, and Universities, and the President of IAC, Dr. Chichoy Campos. Next, to represent Cocopea and was just the recent past President of Philippine Association of Colleges and Universities, and the President of Baliwag University, Dr. Patricia Lagunda. Last but not the least, is it President or Chair? President of Chair? President of the Colleges, Catholic Educators Association of the Philippines, and the President of Araneta LaSalle University, Brother Jun Arguisa. These are the people who led the effort to put this group, together, and also to prepare the manifesto. So without much further, I will turn it over to Brother Jun Arguisa.
Philippine higher education is an integral component in shaping well-rounded individuals who are able to take part in meaningful human, social, cultural, and economic development. When academic freedom is promoted and protected, it is able to generate new ideas and enhance the skills and talents of graduates. Cognizant of the above, we, the presidents and administrators of higher education institutions, affirm collectively and individually that, number one, quality higher education has a vital role in human, social, cultural, and economic development. It is secured through the HEI's verified achievement of government-set minimum standards, the further pursuit of academic excellence, the implementation of the HEI's vision and mission, and responsiveness to stakeholders. Number 2, in the pursuit of truth, HEIs take part in the cultivation of exemplary citizens who embody the values of academic integrity, democracy, patriotism, gender equity, spirituality, and socio-civic responsibility. Number 3, the programs and policies of HEIs should be in accordance to their declared vision and mission. Number 4, sharing of information among all HEIs is essential in addressing the lack of resources, as well as sustaining communication provided that academic freedom and intellectual property rights are respected. Number 5, the production of innovative research allows both students and teachers to gain a deeper understanding of the state of the art in their respective fields. And number 6, HEIs and industry must strive to harmonize the knowledge, skills, and attributes of their graduates with the needs of industry and the economy in a humane society. To this end, HEIs must be willing to work with businesses, non-governmental organizations, and industry and professional associations.
Having established the foregoing principles, we, the presidents and administrators of private, state, and local higher educational institutions, pledge to sustain meaningful and productive discussions leading to recommendations and solutions for the improvement of higher education in the Philippines. We hereby commit to prioritizing the following agenda items towards the realization of an appropriate, responsive, and high-quality Philippine higher education. 1, creating higher quality programs and improving faculty development. To agree upon the purpose of higher education and the definitions of quality. To come up with mechanisms that will encourage all HEIs to have their programs accredited and further improved. To utilize private-public partnership dialogues for the sharing of best practices that can maximize student potentials and learning outcomes. To explore measures of progression and assessments of learning at the tertiary level, and to provide accessible and high-quality training and development support to faculty.
Two, building academe-industry linkages. To institutionalize partnerships between academe and the industry for curriculum design, practical training, and work experience when appropriate, in order to foster the development of skills needed by the industry. To recognize the role of the government in promoting academe-industry collaboration, part of which includes a review of the labor code with a view towards enabling internship and on-the-job training hours to be recognized for employment probation, as well as the provision of financial incentives to encourage such linkages. And to support the creation and sustainability of the National Industry Academe Council, which is mandated to create a reform agenda based on the following areas. 1, involving industry. 2, improving market information. 3, leveling the playing field. And 4, developing systems to improve governance.
Number 3, rationalizing and developing research. To craft the Philippine research agenda and roadmap. To formalize the conduct of research collaboration among all stakeholders through a memorandum of agreement to be signed by the Commission on Higher Education, the Department of Science and Technology, the presidents of school associations, and Philippine Business for Education as representative of industry. To initiate the creation of the Philippine Higher Education Research Portal to allow for and encourage information sharing among schools. To institutionalize and scale up private-public partnerships for research that can strengthen the research capabilities of HEIs. To seek opportunities for the creation of innovation centers and hubs for the benefit of science and technology programs in HEIs. And to increase expenditures in research and development to at least the Asian average of 1.6% of gross domestic product.
Number 4, funding post-secondary education to support the passage of the Unified Financial Assistance System for Higher and Technical Education Bill and other similar initiatives which aim to unify, harmonize, and increase scholarships, grants in aid and loan programs of the national government for higher and technical education. To demand from the government rational, equitable, and augmented funding support for private, state, and local HEIs, subject to quality benchmarks and merit. To make data on the cost of education readily available, to enable policymakers to make informed decisions regarding funding, and to increase public expenditure per tertiary student to at least the ASEAN 5-year average of 27% of per capita gross domestic product.
Number 5, governing Philippine education, to urge the President of the Philippines to institutionalize the coordination of the Department of Education, the Commission on Higher Education, and the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority for the creation of solutions regarding priority issues on education such as, but not limited to, overall system design, the transition to K-12, and multiple pathways to success and development, and to conduct a review of, and if warranted, reform the laws on governance of education in the Philippines. Item 6, supporting the K-12 reform. To show our support for the continued and proper implementation of the K-12 reform, we call on the government to support transition initiatives such as the voucher system and the Tertiary Education Transition Fund. We also ask for the support and openness of the labor groups, faculty unions, and the business sector to explore other concrete steps to facilitate and improve its implementation. Thus, we, the presidents of higher education institutions, hereby affix our signatures as indication of our commitment towards an improved and unified higher education sector in the Philippines.